There's a specific kind of exhaustion that nobody ever names for you. It's not the exhaustion from working too hard or sleeping too little. It's the exhaustion of always being the one who holds things together, quietly, almost automatically, while somewhere in the back of your mind you're wondering if anyone has ever noticed how much energy that actually takes. If you're the oldest child in your family, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you've never been able to explain it to someone who isn't, don't worry, that's what this video is for. Because what I want to explore today isn't the tired list of oldest child traits you've probably seen 100 times. It's something deeper than that. It's about 4 genuine psychological strengths that formed inside you, not because someone decided to give them to you, but because of what life quietly asked of you before you were even old enough to realize it was happening. Let's start here. When you were young, maybe 6, maybe 8, something shifted in your household. A sibling arrived, or responsibilities changed, or the emotional climate of your family required someone to step up. And almost without anyone saying a word, you became that person. Not because you were asked, not because you chose it, but because you were there, and you were old enough, and the situation simply needed it. Psychologists call this a parentified role, and while that term can carry heavy connotations, what it actually describes in many oldest children is something far more nuanced. It describes a child who learned to read the room before they learned to read a chapter book. A child who became fluent in emotional subtext while other kids were still learning to tie their shoes. That skill, that early fluency in emotional complexity, is the foundation of almost everything that makes you who you are today. Here's the first strength, and it's one that often goes completely unrecognized. You developed an unusually high tolerance for ambiguity. What that means in everyday life is this: when a situation is messy, unclear, or emotionally complicated, you don't completely fall apart. You might feel uncomfortable, but something in you knows how to keep functioning. You know how to wait for more information before reacting. You know how to hold tension without immediately trying to resolve it. A lot of people cannot do this. They need clear answers. They need to know where they stand right now. But you learned somewhere along the way that things are often unclear for a long time before they become clear, and that you can survive in that in-between space. Psychologist Susan Cain, in her research on introverted and thoughtful personality types, found that individuals who develop early emotional responsibility tend to become exceptionally comfortable with complexity. They stop looking for the world to be simple, which means they stop being blindsided when it isn't. Think about the last time someone in your life completely panicked over something uncertain, a relationship that was undefined, a job situation with no clear outcome, a conversation that ended without resolution. And think about how you handled the same kind of uncertainty. Not perfectly, maybe, but probably more steadily than they expected. That steadiness isn't luck. It was built. The second strength is one that I think will surprise you, because it's been misread by almost everyone who's ever commented on it. You are an extraordinarily efficient thinker. Now, from the outside, this sometimes gets called controlling, or rigid, or too serious. But what's actually happening when you walk into a situation and immediately start assessing it, identifying what needs to happen, in what order, who should probably do what, is not a personality flaw. It is a cognitive pattern that was shaped by genuine necessity. Research in developmental psychology, including studies by Frank Sulloway, who spent decades analyzing birth order and its effects, consistently shows that firstborn children tend to develop stronger executive functioning than their younger siblings. Executive functioning, your ability to plan, organize, regulate your responses, and think ahead, is essentially the brain's management system, and yours got an early and intensive workout. Here's the everyday example. You're at a group dinner and nobody can agree on where to sit or how to split the check, and the conversation is going in 17 directions at once. And without even deciding to, you've already thought through 3 possible solutions and are waiting for the right moment to offer one. You're not doing this to be bossy. You're doing it because your brain learned a very long time ago that clarity prevents chaos, and chaos is uncomfortable for everyone. That's not control. That's care, expressed through competence. The third strength is, in my opinion, the most quietly remarkable one. You have a deeply developed sense of personal responsibility. And I want to be careful here, because this one has a shadow side that we should name honestly. Sometimes that sense of responsibility becomes excessive. Sometimes you carry things that aren't yours to carry. Sometimes you feel guilty for problems you didn't create. That part is real, and it matters. But underneath that, at its core, the capacity to take responsibility, genuinely and consistently, is one of the rarest qualities a person can have. There's a concept in psychology called an internal locus of control. It refers to the belief that your actions have a real effect on outcomes, that what you do matters. Studies have repeatedly linked a strong internal locus of control to higher achievement, greater resilience, better mental health outcomes, and stronger relationships. And oldest children, more than any other birth position, tend to develop this orientation naturally. Because here's what happened. When things went wrong in your family, when a sibling was upset, when a parent was stressed, when an occasion needed someone to hold it together, the world didn't say, "That's not your problem." It looked at you, and you responded, over and over again, until responding became your default, until taking it seriously became who you are. Think about how you approach your commitments, your word, your work, your relationships. Think about how genuinely uncomfortable you feel when you let someone down, or when you feel like you could have done more. That discomfort is not a weakness. It is the feeling of someone who actually cares whether their presence in the world is a positive one. That is not common. That is not small. The fourth strength is the one that explains why people always seem to come to you with their problems. You became, without formal training or conscious effort, one of the most reliably empathic people in almost any room you enter. Now, this might seem counterintuitive. Oldest children are often stereotyped as serious, achievement-oriented, even a little emotionally closed off. But the research tells a more interesting story. Studies in attachment theory and family systems consistently show that firstborns spend an unusually long time in close observation of adult emotional dynamics, before siblings arrive, and in the caretaking role after. They become students of human behavior by necessity. They learn to notice when someone's tone of voice doesn't match their words. They learn to detect the thing underneath the thing someone is saying. Here's what this looks like in real life. A friend tells you they're fine. And you just know, that they're not fine. Not because you're psychic, but because you've spent your whole life learning to read the gap between what people say and what they actually mean. You notice the half-second pause before the answer, the slight change in their posture, the way they said, "It's fine," instead of, "I'm fine." That's not overthinking, that's pattern recognition. And it makes you genuinely remarkable at understanding people, even when they haven't fully understood themselves yet. Now, I want to take a moment and offer you something I think is important. You probably received a lot of praise for these qualities growing up, but the praise was almost always for the output, for being responsible, for helping, for being mature beyond your years. Almost nobody stopped to ask what it cost you. Almost nobody asked whether the child carrying all of that was okay, whether they were getting enough, not just giving enough. And here's where the unexpected psychological observation comes in. Research on what's called the eldest daughter effect, which extends meaningfully to eldest children across genders, shows that firstborns often develop a complicated relationship with their own needs. They become so fluent in noticing and responding to others that they sometimes become almost foreign to themselves. They don't know what they want for dinner. They don't know what kind of vacation sounds appealing to them. They know what everyone else needs, and they've sometimes never been asked what they need. That quiet self-estrangement, that strange feeling of being very capable and very known by others, and somehow still a little unclear to yourself, is one of the most privately painful experiences of the oldest child's inner life, and almost no one ever talks about it. So here is the reframe I want to leave you with. Everything that formed inside you, the emotional intelligence, the efficiency, the responsibility, the empathy, formed because life brought it out of you. It was not an accident. It was not just random personality. It was you, responding to your environment with everything you had, and developing capacities in the process that most people spend decades trying to consciously build. But those strengths were never meant to function as a permanent weight you carry. They were meant to be yours, not in service of everyone else's comfort. Yours. The oldest child who learned to take care of everything and everyone has, in many quiet ways, never fully been given permission to wonder what it would feel like to let someone else carry something for a while. To ask for help without the immediate instinct to apologize for asking. To simply need something, and let that be enough of a reason to reach for it. You don't have to earn your turn at being taken care of. You already have. The qualities you carry, the steadiness in uncertainty, the capacity to organize chaos, the weight of genuine responsibility, the ability to truly see other people. These are not things that just happen to you. They are things you built, without a blueprint, in real time, while you were still a child figuring out the world. That deserves more than praise. It deserves acknowledgement. And it deserves a new kind of permission. To stop being the capable one for long enough to just be the human one. If this video felt like something you needed to hear today, subscribe. Every week, I go into the parts of psychology that explain the things you've always felt, but never quite had language for. The quiet experiences, the misread traits, the hidden strengths. I'll see you in the next one.